The EAC Aviation Podcast. It's back. It's been years and years since we've uploaded anything to this channel, but it's time to bring it back and get some more interviews going. And if you're new here, the reason why we started this separate channel and platform is because we'd like to have these long conversations, which really isn't suited for our primary channel, which is, hotspots 15 to 25 minutes, if you will. This is more long form, 30 minutes to an hour or sometimes even longer. So our very first guest bringing the podcast back is going to be Gratia Aero Group. Gratia is also a sponsor, and they are supplying BD kits for you. They offer builder assistance, and they are also the importer for the MW Fly engines. Before we get started, just a quick call out to our sponsors sponsoring this episode, like Dynon Avionics, Kit Planes for Africa, Gratia Aero Group, of course, Bravo Fox, which is importing the Black Shape Prime aircraft, Stolt Aircraft, and all of our patrons over at Patreon. If you'd like to sponsor or advertise with the Experimental Aircraft channel, just send me an email at info@experimentalaircraftchannel.com. Or if you'd like to jump on the show with me sometime, send me a message there and title it EAC Aviation Podcast. All right. Well, guys, we're bringing back the podcast. It's been a very long time. I'll put this up on social first, but I'll be on the other channel as well. You've probably seen we've got a new sponsor, Gratia Aero Group here, and I wanted to finally officially introduce you to Attila and what's going on. Now, if you know me, you know I'm very selective on who I work with on sponsors and so forth, because I want people that are going to be of good value and bring some really good influence into our community of aviation. So Attila, welcome, and officially welcome to the community. Let's talk.
Let's do it.
All right, so explain to everybody what Gratia Aero is, and then it represents several things, actually.
Sure. So Gratia Aero Group is the holding entity for our operating companies, which consist of SureWings. That's the first company that we introduced a few years ago, and now BD Aviation and MW Fly, and we'll be adding a few more this year.
Very
And
good.
all these companies, they're operating somewhat independently, but also collaborating with one another. We do have some common staff, common products. It's just the way we are offering them is what makes the difference. And then, of course, MW Fly, that's the engine side only.
So you're bringing to the table here representing an airframe and a power plant. Obviously, you need both to be able to fly, and you are very passionate about these two platforms, if you will, as BD, the airframe platform, and MW Fly as the engine platform. So let's talk about the why, what got you so excited about both these different airframe and engine platforms to actually want to make a business around it.
Sure. Originally, I started building a BD4C, and it was just for my own personal use. And when you're doing something, you talk to friends and they tell their friends. And all of a sudden, I started getting phone calls, people saying, yeah, I want an airplane. And, I was incredulous. So I was like, I'm not in the business of building airplanes. But the calls kept coming in. By about the fourth or fifth call, I said, okay, there's definitely a business model here and there's a need. Because for me to just talk about something without even having built it to get this type of response tells me there's an overwhelming demand. So I looked into it and I kind of verified my suspicion, and then I started SureWings. And at that point, the business model was to offer a complete aircraft kit with a build assist. But then we started getting people calling saying, well, I've already started a build and I want different parts of what you're using. Can you sell it to me? Well, then that kind of started the reseller distributorship part of the business, where we were just selling bits and pieces of what we created for the complete aircraft kit. And we did that for a while. And then when the opportunity came to pick up MW Fly as a distributor form for the Americas, we brought that in to the distributor business. And at this point, we're operating that as MW Fly Americas, but that's essentially an alternate business name for Opus Aero, which is our distributorship company. We just haven't used that name too much because MW Fly is what really has the demand at this point in terms of engines. And I believe it was last year, uh, we had an opportunity to reach an agreement with BD Aero, with Jim Beatty, to get a licensing agreement in place for the BD4C airframe, which I'm a huge fan of. I never had the honor to meet Jim Beatty Sr., but I'm a huge fan of his designs, and I really like the BD4. It checks all the boxes as far as I'm concerned. And we reached a licensing agreement so that we could use the BD4C airframe in our complete aircraft kit. However, we still need to support customers that want to do their own build. So we started BD Aviation as the company that will handle the transition of the BD4 airframe from BD Aero to BD Aviation. So we can offer it as a complete aircraft kit with build assist or as an airframe kit, and the builder, will build it themselves.
So obviously, over the years, BD has come out with several different models, and they're kind of, I guess, testing the market to see which would be more popular, or just have an array of options. But it seems like you focused in on the four, at least to start out with, and to see how that goes.
Correct. We left the licensing agreement open to where we can introduce additional models into it as necessary. But at the moment, we're focused on the BD4C, and we'll see how that goes. And, if it makes sense in the future for other models, we'll definitely incorporate that.
Now this
That's
is
something I have
the
to discuss with Jim.
now this is the biggest model I believe that is currently available in production as a kit and that you're building. So it's a four place aircraft, two passengers, two front. And what is the some of the specs on it, right? What is the horsepower ranges and capacities of? It's kind of like a pickup truck, isn't it?
Yeah, people call it the cyberplane
Okay.
because of its somewhat boxy design, but
Are you
it's
going to
a
come out
kind
with
of
a
a dis
silver one? The first one out is going to be all silver.
exact. Well, when we had it in 21 in AirVenture, it was wrapped in battleship gray, and it really looked like cyberplane at that time. But Cybertruck wasn't out, so it didn't get that moniker at the moment. But now people call me and say, "Hey, you guys are building a cyberplane." Sure.
That's hilarious. Maybe you get Musk's mug on the window like he's flying it or something like that when you're taxiing it around.
Yeah, something like that.
All right. So
But
what is it's a bigger airplane as far as like the cabin, so you can have some real people in it. What is the horsepower range that you can power this thing with?
well, the lowest horsepower recommended is 180, nothing less than that, because the max takeoff is 2,400 pounds with the 11-foot wings. Uh, Maximum horsepower, I believe it's either 400 or 450 is the strongest you could hang on the nose. Somewhere around 200 and 300 horse is probably the sweet spot, depending on how efficient the engine is.
That's a lot of horsepower. So does that mean that somewhere along the line somebody was thinking of putting a turbine on the front of this thing?
I don't know if it's been done, but I've been told that the BD4's probably had more engines, more different types of engines hung on it than any other airframe.
Hmm.
I know there's a gentleman named Ray Ward. He hung a Corvette engine on it, and he was winning cafe races. He outran King Airs, so he's a bit of a legend in the BD four community. So the airframe is very strong. I mean, I've heard that engine take off. I believe it was about a 450 horsepower engine. And he also modified his airframe quite a bit. And that was, I think, prior to the 4C. So he modified a 4B airframe, which is a little narrower and shorter.
Well,
I think it's
let's
four
stop right
inches
there and
narrow.
talk about that for a minute to kind of clarify along the timeline of the BD4. What is the difference between the B and the C? The four,
So the
sorry.
yeah, the C is 17 inches longer, and I believe it's 4 inches wider than the B. And the side profile is a little different. It's got kind of a two step down in the back versus a straight line. That's to accommodate that extra 17 inches. And it's just a more comfortable plane. The 4B, some people consider it a 2+2, but the 4C is a true four seater.
Okay. All right. So that makes the difference there. Now, Is this available only as the tricycle configuration, or can you build it as a tail wheel? What does that look like?
Um, as a builder, you can build it as a tail wheel. That would be through BD Aviation. The Sherwings offering only comes as tricycle.
Which will be the most popular option, I would think, and insurance purposes and all that kind of stuff is the way to go nowadays anyway, right?
Correct.
So, but it's option, it's an option.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
It is. And typical builds, I think the on the light side, you might come in at maybe 1,100 pounds, heavier side at 1,200 pounds. Let's just say at 1,200 on the high end. Um, like example, the Sherwings aircraft kit will weigh 1,200 because by the time we add the air conditioning and whatnot, we're at 1,200 even. That gives you 1,200 pounds useful load. If you use standard tanks, that's 300 pounds of fuel, gives you 900 pounds of uh, passengers and baggage. Now, there's not much baggage room left with everything that we had to add. It's got the parachute in the back, it's got the air conditioning, so the baggage is fairly limited, but you can put four real adults in it, four 200-pound people. There is a limitation in the back seat, however, so you'd have to put the heavier people in the front.
Right.
I believe we're limited to 350 pounds in the back seat area. So it'd be like 275-pound people. Still a true four-seater.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, we had a conversation at Sun Fun, Jim Jr. And I talking about that back in the day. Pilots are based around 165, 170 pound pilot, and it's like, did that really ever exist?
Maybe just a few people.
Just a few
And those are
people.
all optimistic numbers.
Yeah,
But the beauty of the BD4 is that the useful load's, quite high. It's real. And I mean, I know people that put bigger wings on them and, you know, get more useful load out of it, but we don't do that currently. It's set to 24. There are some models where I saw published numbers of 2,500 pounds, but we keep it at 2,400 currently. That's a good number.
all right, so let's talk about the Sherwing side of things, getting the kit from BD and then everything that you're going to do with that, the build assist and all the things. So let's talk about that one for a minute.
Sure. Currently, we're processing several orders for customers. The Build Assist program has started. And for customers that want to go with the Showwings route, where it's a complete aircraft kit with Build Assist, they will come to our facility in San Pedro. And soon we're going to have a facility in Texas and one in Florida. Those are the two locations we're working on. So they don't have to go all the way to West Coast, whatever's more convenient for them. The builder will do their build here in our facility so that they don't need to worry about buying all the necessary tools, the jigs, the fixtures, etc. Um, that's probably the fastest way to build a BD4. And I would say the entire process, depending on availability and scheduling, start to finish is 6 months roughly. But if there's delays, that's additional time. We've got most of the supply issues under control at this point. So I suspect that moving forward, it's about a 6 month process.
So walk me through, like, if I were to jump on board with this idea of doing a builder assist with the BD4C, um, what would my first day of work look like when I arrived and it said, all right, this is my airplane. I want to touch it. I want to build it. What would you put me to work on? Like, kind of step us through the process of the build.
Sure. We start with clecoing the entire airframe together. So literally within one day, you get to see what the airframe is going to look like because the parts come all cut and drilled. So we can assemble the whole thing in one day. From there, we did have to upsize the holes. And I think Jim may have touched on this, but now everything is CNC'd in-house. So that process isn't necessary. Although we do have to do the countersink portion and maybe deburring, and then it has to get corrosion treatment, such as, allodyning. But you would put the entire airframe together. You could literally see it in one day.
And everybody who's new to the BD design, if you will, it's kind of an erector set, truly, where you've got an extrusion and then you've got screws or bolts. So you're saying Cleco, but ultimately you end up bolting this together, correct? The majority of it?
Correct. Correct. There are some rivets that are required, and most of it is bolted together. The airframe is put together with lock nuts, and once you lock it down, it's pretty much a lifetime thing. So we Cleco it, upsize the holes. Well, we used to. Now they should be the exact
Final
sizes
final hole size.
necessary because of the CNC process. And then you tear it down, and then you actually build it back together, locking everything in place. And that process is done just to make sure everything's all squared up and ready to be bolted together. And
So
it
does
gives
that
you a
mean
chance to do inventory.
with this CNC manufacturing now and the final hole size, does that mean that there's no jigging required? You could just literally Cleco and bolt it together, or is there some points I would think that along the line you would check for square and plumb and stuff like that, but for the most part, there's no jig required.
Not for the airframe. Um, so we used to have to put it together, put in 1/8 inch Clecos, and then upsize to 3/16. So that's not going to happen anymore. We just Cleco it together, make sure everything's nice and square, just verify that it's all correct, take it apart, Aladyne it, and then do the final assembly.
Okay.
Basically, the upsizing process is no longer there. We still have to countersink the ones that need to be countersunk, and that's about it. But that process removed, I don't know how many hours, getting the holes perfectly with CNC, because until then, they were never necessarily in the perfect spot. So when you were Clecoing it together, you're basically lining up the next hole, getting that perfectly lined up, putting the Cleco in, and then going to the next one. That process is no longer there. It all just lines up perfectly.
Now, on the fuselage skin, is this just typical sheet metal that gets drilled and riveted in place, or where does the honeycomb type sandwiched aluminum come into play?
So the skins are 020 and 024, and the honeycomb is the basically used in the ribs for the wings. And the ribs go on the tubular spar, and then the skins are bonded to the ribs.
Okay, so the rest of the airplane, other than the ribs, is just typical aluminum. Just the ribs is this honeycomb sandwich. And I asked that because I know BD, the name. I owned a Grumman Yankee a long time ago, an AA1, the speed wing, if you will. And the majority of the fuselage was actually that honeycomb thing, right? And then it had a tubular spar, just like what you have nowadays. And I think the wings had the aluminum typical skin, but the fuselage is mostly of this honeycomb sandwich and then epoxied together. So that kind of went away in this design and went to more of the bolt together extrusion and typical construction of aluminum skin.
Correct. Now, a design similar to the BD1 exists. It's the single seat BD17. That's using a very similar construction method and same materials. It's got the honeycomb all around.
Okay,
So BD4 and the BD6 share the erector set style of construction, but the BD17 is different. It's like your BD1, your Grumman.
correct. Okay, okay. Awesome. So we get on site, we build the frame there, you take it apart, you corrosion proof it, and then reassemble the fuselage. What are some of the next steps? Do the ribs have to get bonded on by the builder and you, or is that already come from the factory? And what's that look like getting the wing put together?
At least one wing will be put together by the builder so that, we comply with the 51% rule. And of course, different things happen at different stages. So we have to schedule the builder to be on site at specific times so that they can partake in all the necessary steps and get to really know the equipment and learn from the whole process. It is a little bit of a challenge to schedule because people have daily lives and jobs and whatnot, but we're working through that to make sure that we sequence the build events so that they're on site at the appropriate times. Now, if they're retired and don't have a day job, well, that makes it really easy.
Sure. All right. So let's talk about the moving forward. The airframe is coming together. What you mentioned the MW Fly, which has a whole array of horsepower options out there. Is that the only engine that you're going to be supplying for this, or what options will people have to be able to install?
Um, Under BD Aviation, when they buy an airframe kit, they can put any engine on it that they like. And, we'll support them to the extent that we can. Obviously, if they want to put a Lycoming in or something that's been done before, not a problem. If it's something novel, then it'll take more work. But the typical recommendation, if they're building something on their own, is to put a Lycoming in. However, they do have other options. Under Sherwings, our first aircraft that we built, our demonstrator model, has a Viking engine in it. It's got the four-cylinder turbo. And currently, that's the only offering at this moment. We're building another plane with an MW Fly engine that'll be another demonstrator. And at that point, we'll offer that as an option as well. The relationship with Viking is still there. In fact, they just sent us out a new ECU and gearbox and several other things. But those are their options. They'll just let's just say in maybe 4 months they'll have the option of ordering with an MW Fly. And if they're building a aircraft kit on their own, really any engine that they want. I mean, it's so many engines have been done before on a BD4. There's a very good builder community. So more than likely, they could put any engine on it they want. But if
Okay.
they're ordering a Sherwings kit, today it's a Viking. Tomorrow it'll be MW Fly or Viking. And who knows what options we may have in the future. Even though we distribute the MW Fly engine as an aircraft kit company, we want to use whatever engines best serve our customers. Um, I think the Viking Honda engine is great. MW Fly engine is great. I think customers are well served by those two options. Obviously, I lean towards the modern engines for various reasons. We don't need to get into it. That's like discussing religion and politics. I'll just say all engines are wonderful. Everyone flies behind whatever they feel comfortable.
Yeah, pretty much. I've learned that very early on that yeah, people are very brand um what's the word? It's hard to get them off it once they're on it, that's for sure. All right.
And there's no need, you know, everyone can fly whatever they're happy with.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So going from the Sure Wings back to the MW Fly for just a minute. Um, and you mentioned the horsepower ranges. MW Fly does have a good variety. So outside of the BD build, um, on the engine side of things, what engines will you be as their dealer supplying horsepower range?
Yeah, so the engine ranges are from 100 to 240 horsepower. We have in stock a 210 turbo right now, and we're waiting on a 240 and a 160. We're going to be stocking the 160 and the 210 and the 240 because that's the most common that we're getting asked for. But of course, there's 24 different versions of the engines because you got left rotation, right rotation, direct drive, gear drive, turbo, non-turbo, different horsepower ranges. It's not possible to stock that many engines, but we're stocking the most common engines that we get asked for. And then we'll basically ordering whatever we're shipping from inventory. Now, if they order something that we don't have, it's going to come directly from Milan straight to the builder's shop.
All right, so let's talk and kind of separate normally aspirated to turbo. Like, what's the horsepower range that you're wanting to deal with up to, which is normally aspirated, and when does it switch over to turbocharged horsepower?
Yeah, so the lowest horsepower turbo is 180. So we have the 180 to 210 and the 240. And from 160 to 100, they're all non-turbo.
Okay.
And the there are direct drive and geared versions of the engines, but some of them, like the 160 direct drive, is only compatible with a helicopter. It doesn't work on an airplane because of the way the drive system's got to be set up.
Sure.
So they can do 140 direct, naturally aspirated 140 direct can go in an airplane, and all the way down to 100 as well. But at 160, direct drive is helicopter only. That's really the only anomaly there.
Yeah, depending on your prop size and speed, you can only go so many RPM, so you have to have a gearbox to bring the prop speed back down. Uh,
Correct.
all right. Well, that's a good, really wide range of horsepower actually, and the configuration, like you said, be able to bolt on a gearbox to change the prop speed, and then the turbo to be able to go, high density altitude and lots of options there. Now, this is made in Italy. It's been around for over a decade now in development, and they think we had a conversation not too long ago. They finally kind of design locked for the most part what they've got, so it means they're finally really happy with it, and and I don't think they plan on making a whole lot of changes from here on out.
Not too many. Really, the changes are going to be in more horsepower and improved logging on the newer ECUs. So there's some more data to collect. Uh, as far as the timeline, I believe 2004 is when the company started designing aircraft engines. Prior to that, I think it was just race engines. And after 10 years in 2014, the first generation one engines were introduced. And in 2024, they released generation two called the Spirit series of engines. So they're in Gen 2. Um, Everything that pretty much they wanted to do with the engine, they've done it at this point. The only two things that I know are coming, like I said, is the data logging and just more horsepower. The 240 dynos above 240, well above it. It's just the testing for the longevity is what really has to be done. But the engine's capable of much more than that. So even at 240, it's not working that hard.
So going back to the sure wings and the build assist and the dealing of BD, you just mentioned you're going to have your demonstrator up and running sometime this year, and you plan to actually use that as a demonstrator. So, how would somebody arrange to get with you to go for a flight and check this out and get the real feel for a BD aircraft?
Sure. They can contact us directly by calling in or going to our website, filling out a contact form, and then we'll call them or sending us an email, um, sales at surewings.com or bdaviation.com, either one, and we'll reach out to them. Obviously, it's easiest if they are willing to come down to Southern California, but when we build the second demonstrator, we'll have one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast.
Okay. And I assume we're going to be able to see this in the flesh, if you will. Oshkosh is coming up. I think you mentioned that you'll be bringing one there for a static display. And then we have probably a few more shows coming up towards the end of the year. What other shows will you be attending so people could see this in person and sit in it and try it on?
Well, we plan to have a completed aircraft that's nearly ready for flight, or if not completely ready for flight. It's just from a timing perspective, it would be very difficult to do phase one and then fly it across country. So we're going to have a completed aircraft that people can look at, sit in. We will be able to demonstrate all the features that it has. The next show, and correct me if I'm wrong, you may know this, but I believe there's a sport aviation show um, scheduled. I believe it's around November timeframe, and I
Yeah,
don't know if that's
October,
going to
November. Yeah,
happen
the
this year.
Midwest. I think they might have changed the name, but it's in Illinois, I think. That's where a lot of
There's
demos
that
are done.
one, and I think there's another show. I believe it's affordable aircraft or sport aircraft. I know it got delayed 1 year, but we're going to be at that one as well. It would be ideal if we could take the aircraft back to the shop, do our phase one testing, get all that worked out, and then be able to fly it to the next trade show. That's really how what we'd like to see happen. But just we just don't want to rush anything. So we want everything to be perfect. So the best plan for us is to get the aircraft to Oshkosh and in a completed state where people can look at it. It won't be identical to what the production kits will look like because this aircraft's been built and torn down and built so many times in order to get the repeatable processes in place. But it'll be a very good representation of what the aircraft will look like.
Okay. And let's talk about on the kit builder side. You mentioned the BD aviation side. Somebody wanted to order a kit. Would they order the complete kit all at once, or do you do that in sub assemblies like the tail, wing, and fuselage, or what is that available as BD is still producing this, and then also what should the lead times be on a subcomponent or complete kit?
I believe all the kits are going to be in stock. So, if someone orders a complete kit, it probably ships in a week, just enough time to, compile everything and ship it out to them. Uh, in terms of parts of a kit, that's not a problem either. And that's why like the kits aren't kept as a complete kit in one piece. So they have to be put together. So if somebody were to order, let's say, I don't know, tail section, then that's also in stock and that could be shipped pretty quickly.
Okay, good to know. I mean, a lot of people start off with a tail because that's kind of like, cutting your teeth on the construction standards of that particular, platform or whatnot, and then move into either the wing or fuselage. I would recommend for you new builders out there to absolutely start with either a tail or rudder, whichever how, they have it broken up, and then go directly into the fuselage. And I say that now almost 10 years into my build. Now, life has happened in that 10 years, but the fuselage is where it's at. Like everything goes into the fuselage, right? Wings are actually fairly simple to build, but everything goes into the fuselage, and um, it helps you with your engine selection. You can be able to build that and have it sitting on the gear. You can get in it and make airplane noises, and all those things that keep you motivated. But just my personal take on it: tail, fuselage, wing, final. You know, some people have like the final a kit for like the canopy and wheels, tires, brakes, or something like that. But um,
That's some
speaking
good
of,
advice.
is that thank you. Is that how
Yeah.
that's broken down as far as the sub kits or whatnot? You have tail, wing, fuselage, and like finish kits, or how is that kind of
Yeah.
broken
Then
up?
you got the landing gear, things of that nature.
Okay. So, but like the landing gear would be separate, like as a finish kit, or is that included in the fuselage kit?
Well, the landing gear is a separate kit, but
Okay.
if you order a complete kit, obviously it comes all complete.
Okay.
But in the fuselage, the landing gear isn't in that. You have to order the landing gear kit separately.
Gotcha. And is that an aluminum spring gear, or is there some type of bungee system? Or what does that look like on the BDs?
It's 100 layers of S-ply fiberglass.
Oh, it's a composite spring. Okay. Just like
Yeah,
just like
and
my little Grumman, I think had the same thing.
yep, yeah, it's it can take a lot of punishment.
Awesome.
It's massive. I mean, when you look at the gearbox and how it comes in and the way it's bolted in, it's a very stout construction.
Sure. Well, looking forward to seeing your version of it at Oshkosh. And it's been several years since I visited. Was it the Fort Pierce office that when
Correct.
Jim had? Yeah, and they had like a whole display of everything out there then. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing your version of it with this engine configuration and whether you show up in all silver or paint or whatever it is that you're gonna
It's
surprise us
painted
with.
now.
Is it painted now?
And yeah, and I think when you did that one video, our aircraft was there. It had just been delivered there, and
Oh,
just the
really?
skeleton airframe was there in the background. And
In the
that was our
showroom?
demonstrator plane. It was the one in the big hangar.
Oh, okay. I gotcha.
Yeah, behind you when you were filming.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, we look forward
There's a
to.
couple other things I want to share with you, though. By the way,
Okay,
on
absolutely.
the both on the show wings and the BD Aviation side, we now have Banterra Aircraft Finance that's financing our customers for their aircraft. And they'll do it if it's something that you built on your own. Let's just say, let's under BD Aviation, you bought an airframe kit and you completed it. Once it's registered and airworthy, um, you can finance it, and they'll finance up to 80%. Now, under SureWings, the way it works is that the bank requires 20% down, which is essentially your first payment. When you do that, you don't have to make any more payments. So you don't have to come up with the money and then get it financed. You don't pay anything until the aircraft's flying, airworthy and registered, and then your payments start. So, as an example, if the complete aircraft kit with build assist is, let's say, 248,000, you're basically putting down $49,000 and that's it. Nothing more than that until your payments start when the aircraft is built, registered, and airworthy. So it's easier for customers to get their aircraft under that program. But even under BD Aviation, they can buy the kit, finish everything up, and then get it financed. And both BD Aviation and Sure Wings is already approved with Banterra Aircraft Finance, and they're really easy to work with. The application literally takes like 5 minutes.
Okay, good to know. Good to know. I assume on doing the Sure Wings option because you're doing the builder assist is why they opted to allow this because otherwise it might take 10 years to build an airplane, right? You have like a 6 to 12 month program and it needs to get done with that timeline.
Correct. Originally, we talked to them about Sure Wings with the completed aircraft kit with the build assist. But then when we talked to them and said, well, if someone builds it themselves after it's completed, can you finance them? And they said, yes, we'll do that, no problem. Basically, once it's airworthy and you got a tail number, you can finance it. Now, there's another piece of the puzzle. Um, you got to have an aircraft, you got to get it financed, but you also need insurance because to get it financed, it's got to be insured. And just like when we partnered with Banterra Aircraft Finance, we are actively looking for an insurance company we can work with that can give our customers a fair rate, not this crazy insurance rate that people are being quoted. So for all the underwriters watching, please reach out to us. We want to get some good pricing in place for our customers because the BD4 is an incredibly safe aircraft, and we think that our customers should have fair premium pricing.
Okay. And again, you said on the West Coast, which is California, correct? Is where your home base is now?
Correct. I'm officed in San Pedro, which is also where our workshop is. We're going to open another workshop um, down the road, maybe 2 hours from here, uh, at an airport where we have a 7,000 square foot hangar. Our facilities here are about 4,000 square feet, and we're off the airport. So when the aircraft are built, they got to be trailered to the hangar for the final assembly of wings, etc. But we're going to have another workshop that's on an airport, and everything beyond that is going to be like Texas and Florida. That's what we have in mind. We're actively looking for locations.
Okay. So just kind of a recap for everybody. We've got BD Aircraft is still alive and producing kits. We got Sherwings that wants to supply not only the kits, but more so this builder assist to make sure that you're able to get your aircraft completed in a timely manner. And then you are offering right now the MW Fly engines and the Viking aircraft engines to power this thing. So again, kind of like a preset menu to get you going into the air in a real four-place experimental aircraft.
Correct. Well put.
Okay. All right. Well, Attila, thank you for one sponsoring Experimental Aircraft Channel and helping us grow our community of aviation. And thank you for taking some time here to explain and clarify to people what you have going on in your business over there. And we look forward to seeing again your version of the BD here very soon, and then at the other air shows coming up throughout the year. And I'm very curious. I've heard the Viking in person at some of the Stoll competitions. The Viking 185, right, is what you're using. I have not heard in person the MW fly engine, so I'm kind of curious myself of what the signature sound is of these engines in person. So I look forward to seeing you out on the ramp and the airfield soon.
Yeah, thank you. We're glad to be involved. We will have an MW Fly engine at Oshkosh for people to look at in person.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. All right. And again, you are located online with Gratia Aero .com, correct?
Correct. From Gratia.Aero, you can click on each company that's listed below. You can use it as a launching point. And as we add different companies and offerings, they'll all appear under Gratia.Aero.
Okay. Very good. Very good. And I know you're still building this things, and you got all kinds of irons in the fire right now with building aircraft and importing engines and so forth. Uh, and you're developing your social footprint, if you will. Are you available to kind of in the probably after Oshkosh share some of the construction process that you've gone through your demonstrator and be able to share that online with everybody?
Absolutely. Once the aircraft is completed and it's flying, we're going to release several years of videos and content. We've just kept things kind of quiet for the time being, and there's a lot people can expect that's going to be forthcoming.
Awesome. Well, we'll check in again with you very soon at Oshkosh, and then after Oshkosh as things develop with Gratia.
Wonderful. Look forward to it.
All right, everybody, thanks for taking some time today listening to our bringing the podcast back. If you want to join us on the podcast, please send me a message to info@experimentalaircraftchannel.com. Love to talk what I call the aviation conversation. It usually lasts longer than 30 minutes, which is why we do this podcast channel because it's much longer than typical 15 to 25 minute episodes that we do. So until next time.